Welcome to Awaken the Mind, the NLP and Hypnosis Guide, hosted by David Uhas.
You're listening to Awaken the Mind, the NLP and Hypnosis Guide, a podcast that inspires the curious to the professional to discover meaningful content and pursue their passions. My name is David Uhas, and I'm a master NLP practitioner and hypnotist, best known for losing over 100 pounds and running 6 marathons in 2 years. And I'm sitting down with hypnotists, NLP practitioners, and coaches to talk about their process, the lessons they've learned, and how to make an impact in the lives of others. Our guest today is Amanda Carson. She is a registered social worker based in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. By the age of 14, she knew she wanted to work in a helping profession. She has completed training in various styles of yoga, mindfulness, integrative hypnosis, and life coaching. Amanda owns Shift Winnipeg, an integrative therapeutic wellness business. She works in private practice where she offers integrative hypnotherapy, mindfulness-based therapies, and coaching. She believes in treating the whole person, mind, body, soul. She works from this holistic perspective so that her client's entire self is seen, recognized, and fulfilled. Amanda is passionate about hypnosis because of the incredibly powerful shifts that are possible when we expand our awareness and perspectives of ourselves and our life's journey. And please give a warm welcome to Amanda Carson. Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for being here today, taking time out of your schedule to spend some time with us today. I'm excited about our interview.
Me too. Me too.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about yourself right now, what's going on, where you're from, obviously Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, but what's the weather like there? What's going on in your life right now?
The weather is probably one of the biggest talked about things in our city. Yesterday it was 20, it was sunny, and today it's about 7 and it's rainy and it's cold. And always the case, always the case. We had a day in April where it was snowing in the morning, sunny in the afternoon, and then there was a thunderstorm in the evening.
Interesting. So you get to see like almost all of the seasons in one day.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I'm from Winnipeg, and I had gone out to New York in April for the first time, which was awesome, to do my training in integrative hypnosis and life coaching. And since that time, I've come back to the city and have been implementing all of those tools just straight away.
Nice. And that's our backstory. We met at Melissatiersgraduate training in New York. And so what were some of your favorite things about New York? And I keep asking everybody this, but I just had a list.
Oh my goodness. I just loved, because where I was staying, it was quite close to our training. It was about a 15-minute walk. So I walked and walked and walked, and I just got to take in so much. And I wasn't sure what it would be like, I mean, Winnipeg's not that big of a city. And so I was a little scared, to travel to New York alone, but I felt really comfortable there, and it was easy to navigate. Like I felt, people were helpful. The subway was really easy. It was great.
Nice. And that's an interesting kind of metaphor also with change work, how at first it seems, maybe overwhelming or frightening even. For me, I'm like, I just got to get to the freaking place I'm staying at from the airport, and then I'll figure out everything else. But I was, kind of in that fight-flight response thing. And then you find out that most of it was just kind of overthinking everything.
Definitely. I remember when I booked my flight, I kind of had that, oh, what just happened feeling, But
now you're committed.
I landed and I went to my Airbnb and I stayed with a really helpful host. And she had a cute little chihuahua, and it was great. It was perfect.
That was my second challenge there. It was my first time doing an Airbnb.
Yeah.
And I was thinking Silence of the Lambs. I mean, I had no idea what I was getting into. And it turned out to be a wonderful experience. My host was able to share with me cool things to do while I was there. I ended up going to an improv show, and it was just a blast. Yeah.
No, it was great. And it's one of those places that I think you could visit and there'd always be something new to take in. It was awesome.
Nice. Well, let's get to learn about you. I already know a little bit about you, but I want to learn something I don't know about you. So tell me about yourself growing up. What was it like being Amanda growing up?
Yeah.
What are your hobbies, interests, sports, role models, books that you like to read?
All of that stuff. Yeah. Well, I was born in rural Saskatchewan, and my family, we moved around quite a bit when I was younger for my dad's work, and we landed in Manitoba, and I grew up in the country, so not on a farm, but on an acreage. And I miss that. Living in the city is great, but sometimes being able to just go out home, like to my parents, and just have that silence out there, and you hear the birds, and you really realize how maybe when you were younger you kind of took it for granted, and I grew up in a small town. All of my best friends from my school years are still my best friends today. We've been friends since we were 7 years old. And I think, being in a small city like that, it's funny how coming to Winnipeg now, it's kind of the biggest city, right? In our province, it is the biggest city. And so you end up still running into a lot of the same people, and you have those kind of lifelong connections with people. But when I was younger, I was not a fan of school or learning. Once I got my license, I didn't go to school very often. I would skip school a lot. I would, I wanted to spend time with my friends and boyfriends and I didn't have an interest in learning what we were being taught in school. But, even from a younger age, I was always drawn to supporting people. And I remember in high school, I volunteered. We had a special needs classroom, and I would volunteer there and work with the students and the teachers and the educational assistants. And I don't know what it was that just right away drew me to that type of work, but it was something that outside of my friend group, I was really the only one interested in that kind of thing. And I remember, I guess it would have been in high school, we had some options to take some psychology courses. And I knew right away that that was something I was going to be interested in. And once, I guess, there was more of an opportunity to have that focused learning was where my interest and passion grew. And then after graduating school, I worked for a couple of years, and I was talking with a friend of mine, and I said, this is what I want to do. I want to help people. I want to do counseling. And he said to me, well, then, you're going to have to go back to school. And I was just thinking, no, no more school. But once I got into university, and again, you have that more streamlined and focused learning, I was hooked. I was hooked, and I haven't stopped wanting to learn since that time.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Sometimes I see this with our clients where they're not passionate about something. So when you were younger, and there's also a season for everything, right? And when we find our passion, it's so much more interesting, and we look for how can we learn, and you found that. So cool. So tell me about then what led you into what you do now. What brought you to today? It sounds like that all brought you up to, but what was the very first steps? You talked about university. What was the first work that you started doing on that professional level?
Well, I first went to school to do my Bachelor of Arts. I wanted to do counseling, so I thought I would do a psych degree, go on to master's degree in psychology. But I started learning more about sociology and the social work program here in Winnipeg, and it made so much sense to me that, when you're looking at the person in their environment and the social impacts around them, and just really the more holistic view of a person in their life. And so when I was doing my practicum, I worked with children and teens primarily who are at risk of, there was oftentimes like family dynamics happening, poverty, alcohol and drug use, those kinds of things. And so we would work with these children and teens and their families to teach them positive, just social skills, to learn about how to take care of themselves, each other. So we did a lot of outdoor-based therapy, adventure therapy. As I was a yoga teacher at the time, I would do a mentorship program for teen girls, and we would do yoga, and then we would also have, discussion and different aspects like that to really dig a little bit deeper once the girls were feeling more comfortable. And so I also had spent some time working in schools as an educational assistant. And that was an opportunity that was quite challenging. Again, it was more of a special needs student base. And so again, you see a lot of family dynamics, kids coming to school who haven't ate, you can tell they haven't bathed in a while, and it's hard obviously to see that kind of thing, but there's so much value, I think, in having an opportunity for children to have that supportive network, whether they just need someone to vent to, or a positive role model in their life. So that was all kind of the beginning portion of that work. But then I was led into geriatrics somehow. I didn't, like, from children right up to 100-year-olds. And that's actually I've been working in geriatrics since 2015, and I love that population. It's just amazing to hear the stories of someone's life journey and, the value that someone who is 90 years old, that they have and that they can offer. And I think sometimes that's overlooked. With ageism, it's a lot of, well, you're old, what do you know? But it's so the opposite. It's been great learning from that kind of clientele.
I'd like to see a lot more, if there was a way to somehow create, more coaching, mentorship from those people, and they could do it online.
Absolutely.
Somehow to share that wisdom, I think that would be of great value.
Definitely. I think there was somewhere in the States, they were running a program where they would link older adults with teens, and they would work, like you said, together online and learn from one another. I don't know the name of that program, but I remember reading about it and thinking, definitely, it's because those people, I think older adults sometimes feel that they have nothing left to give. They often are struggling with losing their abilities to do some of the things that they used to do. But to have that reminder that there's still a lot that they can do, so empowering. And it's just a lesson that I think we all need to learn and keep in mind. So it's been really, really great working in that population. But with my private practice work, I seem to draw in women. I don't think I've ever seen a male private client. And usually I would say maybe 25 to 45 age range. That's been the people who have been drawn in. So that's also then again kind of more of that, not young, not older, but kind of in the middle. So it's nice to be able to have that variety when you're working with people. Yeah.
Do you have like a favorite type of thing that you like to work about, something that you're passionate about? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a good thing, but something that a challenge that somebody's going through that you are passionate about.
Yeah. I like working with people who are grieving. And so I think that sometimes we think of grief as just being when someone passes away and it affects a loved one, but there's grief that happens, you lose a job, a relationship ends, a relationship starts, and that changes your identity. I just got married last October, and I remember speaking to my own counselor, and she said, sometimes when you get married, you experience that grief because you're leaving behind, this identity of yourself as a single individual, and now you're part of this relationship. And for myself, I changed my name to Amandacarson. It was Amanda Burkowski before. And so just those kinds of adjustments too. And so I really love working with people through their grief process, because I think it's something that is so universal, and it's all of us will at one point in our lives experience some sort of grief. But there's so much strength that can be drawn from that, and that people have within them. And sometimes it's just a matter of them remembering that and connecting to that strength within them. And I also hear a lot of the time of really cool stories and situations where people have lost loved ones, and then, will have very vivid dreams of them. And then the next day they go and talk to someone else, and somehow it lines up with what the dream was about. And now it's just these messages and, insights that are coming through from the loved one. And I think that the way that people experience these kinds of things is oftentimes a way of coping and making sense of everything, when we just want to make sense and meaning of our experiences and what people can pull from inside of them. And also if they feel that connection with a loved one who's passed on, there's so much strength there. So it's probably, for my ideal client, or the people who I'm really passionate about working with, it's those people who have experienced a grief, but they know that they want to move on and to still honor whatever situation it was that they went through, but grow from that.
This example is kind of petty. I'm experiencing a little grieving. The older I get, with with my eyes. So it was just a couple years ago that I was looking at a remote control, and I'm like, man, that's really tiny print. I couldn't read it. And long story short, I realized when I got some reading glasses, I could see perfectly with the reading glasses. And I didn't like that. And then even here recently, as I'm going through the house, if I don't have my glasses on, a part of me just feels like I'm this whole new person, and I want to still be that person that I used to be that had the good eye. As silly as that sounds, a part of me just is really, it's like, I'm getting old. You know, I'm getting older.
Yeah.
But what are some things for somebody who's going through grieving? Like, let's say something a little bit more significant, a breakup or a loss. I know that when they can recognize they're in a certain phase of it, because I believe that there's phases to grieving, that there's value in it to them, that they can kind of, as an observer, see themselves. It's like, oh, this is why you're feeling that way. What are some tools that you could share with people that may be going through grieving?
Mm-hmm. Well, tapping and EFT is actually a really helpful tool to help process grief, to help process that energy within the body. And so with the tapping, you know, when you're adding in those affirmations that are recognizing that the struggle is there and it's real, and then also voicing the strengths and inner resources that one has, it's so important to recognize that the feelings that you experience are real and they're valid. And, you know, I think with any unpleasant feeling, we often just don't want to feel it and we want to push it away, right? But I think with the EFT process, it's helpful for people to have that opportunity to go through those steps and feel what they're feeling, but also feel the diffusing of some uncomfortable sensations or thoughts. And also, you know, with the grief process in regards to tools, I think that it's really important to pay attention to just your sense of self. And so oftentimes when there's grief, you know, like you were mentioning, it's like this feeling of wanting to go back, right, to whatever it was before. And really just giving people an opportunity to realize that they're still themselves. You know, the sense of self at the time may feel very fractionated and torn apart, but when they're at the root, they're still themselves. And so oftentimes with, like, I really love to use a guided practice, whether it's a meditation or a visualization work. So with hypnosis, we can do a lot of that work of having an opportunity to have conversations maybe with them, you know, themselves at a different stage, or with a loved one, and say things that needed to be said, and really taking back anything that was lost along the way. And that acceptance piece, again, of at the core of everything that's going on, they're still whole, even though they feel very torn apart. And you know,
yeah.
And so definitely mindfulness of the present moment and of non-attachment, but in a kind and gentle way, of course, because as we know, anytime we're at war with what's going on in the present moment as it is when we suffer. So it's that kind approach to non-attachment, and I guess ultimately to the whole reality of impermanence, and what does that really mean as human beings, and is there strength in that somehow? And kind of, digging through the layers of things. And so having people journal what's going on in their head, if it's just really noisy in there, sometimes doing what is called kind of like a brain dump, and you're just writing and writing and writing and letting whatever comes through flow through. And then kind of seeing what the patterns are there, and then working on those specific patterns that have been limiting someone with their healing.
I'm curious, with the tapping, some of our listeners will be where I was at before I learned about the tapping. And for me, it was this foo-foo stuff.
Right.
There's actually technology behind this that's been around for thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
Somebody that's interested in doing, what are some resources, or could you share anything about how to do it, or for somebody who doesn't know what it is, or even just an explanation
of what it is? Yeah. So emotional freedom technique, EFT, is when you use acupressure points. So you tap with your hand on various acupressure points in the body. So similar to acupuncture, but needle-free. And so, with acupuncture, with acupressure, it's the energy stagnation in the body, right? So oftentimes that can show up as depression, anxiety, chronic illness.
even a feeling, right?
Yes.
I get a feeling in my chest sometimes, or in my gut, or...
Absolutely. And so with the tapping, as you tap on the acupressure points, you also are then using positive affirmation to link the physical energy movement with the more linguistic piece of what is it that you're working through, and what is the positive outcome that you are seeking. And those two combined create this quite powerful technique and approach to shifting your state. So, I think as we've learned, even just with Melissa, right, last month, it's sure talking something through is great, but I think, there's so much research out there and evidence out there that talks about how we store emotions within the body and in our energy field. And so this technique is something that can be done on yourself, done with a practitioner. And so there's a few great websites out there that will explain how to do it and what points and why and all of that. There's the tapping method, I believe it's called, is a good resource, as well as EFT Universe. They actually have a lot of online videos that you can follow. They offer trainings, and they have a lot of good just kind of blog posts about different ailments and how to use EFT for those ailments.
So something that's interesting for somebody who hasn't experienced hypnosis or EFT or these different techniques, there's a coaching presupposition, and it might even be an NLP presupposition that says what we resist persists. Kinesthetic people will have a bigger experience of holding on to that feeling, that energy in their body. But everybody can associate with some kind of kinesthetic feeling. And it's interesting how through this EFT, we're able to release that. And I believe, or I make up, and this is my assertion, that statement, what we resist persists. Sometimes it's about rightness, wanting to be right about a situation that's creating this toxic energy in our body. And sometimes it's like, I'm whole and complete, I love myself, and acknowledging that, and letting that energy go.
Exactly. And again, I think it kind of comes back to mindfulness, in that sense that you are very clearly repeating what you're feeling and what's happening, and the fact that despite that, you are still whole, just like we were saying. Yeah.
Cool.
So it's a good one.
Absolutely. I'm new to that, so I'm still learning that process. And so I do appreciate you mentioning that, that's an excellent resource for also practitioners who are, maybe they don't always work with somebody that's doing grief, but you attract those types of people, and you like working with those types of people, and you've seen results with that, using that technique. So that's value not only to people who haven't experienced it, but also practitioners who maybe are looking for resources of specifically something to use with somebody to give almost immediate relief, right? I mean, not necessarily a long term. Well, I guess maybe long term. Or can you speak on that? Because it's interesting how quickly this is, the change in the state.
Yeah. And I think that with the EFT, it's one of those tools that can be used on the go, in the moment.
In any environment, right?
Right, yeah. And so I think that just with the process of, grief itself, it ebbs and flows. And so with a practice like EFT, or using that kind of tool, it can shift the state that you're in very quickly. And there has been quite a bit of research on the fact that it can be, for the overall, whether it's a pain issue, or whether that's emotional or physical, or something like a grief or a trauma, it can kind of speed up the recovery time, in the sense that you're acknowledging energy, emotion, cognition, all of those things. And so it's very applicable to many challenges that people are facing. I think it was even Melissa who talked about, she had used EFT for allergies to cats, because I guess she had a challenging situation in the past with one of her pets, and ended up using EFT, and then was no longer finding that she was being, having those allergic symptoms around cats. So it's pretty interesting what we store away, and like you say, what you resist persists. So
yeah. And again, just when you say allergies, I know there's going to be someone listening to this that's going to say, oh, that's some foo-foo stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And I will attest, I've seen results like that a practitioner did with somebody. And this was one of the first moments in my training where I'm like, wow, there is something really big out here with this quick change work. When I saw somebody have an allergic reaction where they went back to a time when they had that allergic reaction, their face swelled up and puffed up, and then they went through a process, and then it all vanished. But their eyes turned red, they were tearing. I mean, it was very fascinating. So something for somebody who is curious about that with allergies, look into it. There's a lot of evidence out there that supports this. I think that one of the things Melissa shared with us was try it on everything. I think there's a YouTube video, and it says, like what you had said, just it works with a lot of different things, and a very powerful technique. And I'll share that link also. Tell me about your present, like any books that were just like, wow. I know a lot of practitioners spend a lot of time learning different things, whether it's a book or training or what are some of your big ahas in your training?
Well, I'm laughing because the book list that I have now, I mean, my goodness, we were given so many recommendations. It's been amazing. I've barely broken into, but it's just, I've been really interested lately in Brian Wise's work. So during our training, we had done the past life regression with both Melissa and Dan, and I think it was another student who mentioned Brian Weiss, or perhaps it was Melissa, but he has a number of very interesting books and stories of work that he's done with clients and has seen rapid change based on what they've went through and experienced during their past life regression. And so, just like we were talking about with the allergies and how the EFT cured allergies, it's you're seeing the same thing happening with past life regression. So, lung like complications clearing up because someone had past life regression where they had been in the Holocaust and experienced, I guess what the name, I can't remember, but had something traumatic happen there and had carried on this lung condition throughout their life, and through the past life regression work that cleared up and went away.
Wow.
And so his book, I think the reason that I really love Brian Weiss so much is because he very clearly states that when he first, because he's a psychiatrist, so when he first started doing work with clients, he had no interest in past life regression. He really didn't believe in reincarnation at all. And one of his clients during session spontaneously went back to a previous life, and he's been doing this work now for years, and the change that he's seen in clients, again, whether it's something physical or emotional, it's kind of changed, I think, the way that he practices altogether, and now he specializes in that kind of work. And so he has a number of great books that you read them and you just, I just light up inside.
I can see that.
Yeah. It's really great stuff. So I would recommend, if people are interested, not even in necessarily past life regression, but just, this rapid change in people, it's a great opportunity to expand what you believe to be possible.
Yeah. And again, for our foo-foo listeners, potential foo-foo listeners, I always get his name, is it Jungian? Carl Jung?
Yeah.
So he talks about, symbolisms and archetypes. And so whether you believe in reincarnation, past life, or if it's possibly just a symbol or a metaphor to you, that, I'm Christian, and it's in the Bible. It talks about the sins of our grandfathers passed down to us, who we are now, some of that behavior patterns and choices from the past just gets carried down on an unconscious level. And so that's how I really identify with that. But it is really fascinating work. And I didn't, I wasn't a believer in it at first either, but my eyes have definitely been open to so much more potential. And there are people who are in that place where it works for them. It's their model of the world.
Exactly.
So, cool. Well, thanks for sharing that resource with us.
Absolutely.
So what's on your bucket list? You've got so much more life to do. And
yeah. Oh, you know what? I, through hypnosis, have been able to alleviate a lot of my fear of flying. And I find that the more and more I travel, it becomes more enjoyable, just that experience of flying, you know. And so I have definitely a number of places on the list to visit. I'd really like to go to Alaska. I actually would really love to go to Portland in Oregon and Seattle, and I'd like to go back to New York.
Me too.
Well, yeah, as soon as possible. And my husband, he really would like to travel to Iceland and different places like that. So I think he's maybe not as much has an interest in traveling as I do, but I definitely have a lot of places to check off that list.
That sounds wonderful. I share that. It was uncomfortable to fly, and now I really look forward to that whole experience. It's kind of a nice, peaceful, relaxing, you know, if it's a, 3-4 hour flight, I can get some rest finally.
Exactly. Yeah, well, even on the way to New York, I ended up meeting a really nice lady, and we had a good talk. And she was from Toronto, but she had a sibling in New York, so she was there quite a bit. And so she gave me some good recommendations, and
nice.
It was nice to make that connection with someone.
Yeah. So what's next for you with, you've got some exciting news that maybe you've already released, but you shared with me before we started the interview about you're getting a new location.
Yeah.
Would you like to share about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm moving into what's called Safe Harbor Therapy. And so it is a collective of therapists who work independently, but there is that more collective feel. So we're all working together in this sense, but we run our own businesses. And so there's massage therapy, there's a licensed marriage and family therapist, there's other social workers, there's an EMDR psychotherapist and naturopathic doctor, and now myself, who will be doing hypnotherapy. So it's a great fit, and it's actually, I think, a 2-minute drive.
Can't beat that.
2-minute drive from home. So hopefully if the weather improves here in Winnipeg, I'll be able to walk down there. But I'm so excited about being in that spot, because working in a clinic with like-minded individuals who all truly believe in that holistic perspective with healing, right? So mind, body, soul. There's a room in the space for yoga. So they're planning to do trauma-informed yoga, meditation, other forms of movement therapy, somatic therapy. So it's just the greatest fit, and it wasn't expected. The owner had reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in joining them. And again, I think the timing, it just has been perfect. And I'm so excited to have that kind of, concrete, more community feel to the work that I'm doing. Because I think in private practice, it can be a bit alienating at times, and this will be nice to have more of that kind of collective feel.
Yeah, nice community and collaboration with like minds.
Exactly.
Well, that is exciting, and I am excited for you and look forward to hearing more about that in the future.
Thank you.
Do you have anything that you're doing, any presentations or trainings coming up for you?
You know what? I actually have a couple of friends here in the city who run trauma-informed yoga trainings. And so I'm very interested in doing that. There's one coming up in the fall. So I think that'll be my next training. There's also a coach out of BC here in Canada. Her name is Terry Holland, and she runs NLP trainings, hypnosis, timeline therapy trainings. And so that's on my list for sure. It's quite an intensive training. I think it's about maybe around the same length as our 8-day intensive. So probably looking into next year, something like that for that one, but that'll definitely be on the list. And then in regards to my own work, right now I'm trying to, decide once I get settled in my new office, is there a way that I could do more virtual work with people? So whether that's one-on-one or offer online workshops and that kind of thing, because I think there's so much value, especially with things like Zoom, that make it so accessible to connect with people in your community, but also outside of your community. And so I'd like to create some sort of program for people who maybe can't get to see someone for hypnotherapy one-on-one, but are looking for whether it's tools or techniques to use, and can be taught more virtually that way. So that's something in the works.
That is really a hot topic. I'm finding the virtual, doing hypnosis and also coaching practitioner work through virtual. And at first I was resistant to that, but I am now seeing the value in that. I actually signed up for a training with that. There's a gentleman, now I can't remember his name, but I'll share the link with you and also our listeners, where he has, it's like 3 evenings over 3 weeks, I believe, where he teaches how to do a virtual hypnosis practice. Wow. I was excited when I saw that, because I kind of got the idea, but I'm a structure person, and it's nice to have a structure, the whole thing laid out. How does this work, and how is it effective? So I'll share that with you if you're interested.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you want to be remembered? The impressions you intend to leave behind?
Ooh, big question.
Oh, I like asking big questions. Piece of cake. You got this. Trust your unconscious mind.
Exactly. Oh, you know what? I was thinking about this the other day, actually. And, the name Amanda means to be loved. And so I really feel that whether it's just the work that I'm doing or just with relationships with people in my life, I just want to spread the love and also feel the love. And I think that as human beings, we all are looking for that connection. And so I just want to be remembered as someone who was able to bring that to someone's life and benefit them in that way.
Nice. How do our listeners get a hold of you, your social media websites? And we'll put all them links in there, but go ahead, please share with us how to get a hold of you if someone's interested in grief work, or even if it's a professional that wants to follow up with the different things that you talked about with what you do.
Yeah, so I am on Instagram at Shift Wpg, and on Facebook, so it would just be Facebook, you can look for Shift Wpg there, which stands for Winnipeg. And then my website is shiftwpg.com.
Now I'm new to Instagram, so I'm going to ask a silly question. There's no silly questions, right? When you say shift, are you talking like the shift key, or it's the spelling shift?
The spelling, yeah. SHIFTWPG.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Now my daughter might listen to this and say, Dad, really, seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Amanda, thank you so much for being here. It is great to see you again. Sending you love from the United States to Canada.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. It was awesome.
Thank you for joining us today with Awaken the Mind,
Relax.
hosted by David Juhas.
Awaken the mind, you need to understand. If you can't, you must, and if you must, you can. Now that I got you, let me put you in a trance. Got you feeling hypnotic, your mind, let me massage it. Your thoughts are getting quiet, your stress subsiding. You starting to see images, but it ain't no mirages. Think it's time to calibrate. Take a breath and concentrate. Get into your subconscious. Time to feel the energy, the brain waves. Let's go deep into your memory. Beware of self, let the worries melt. All you see is you and you don't see no one else. Auditory digital, talking to yourself. It might seem bizarre, a feeling you never felt. This is your time to shine. Awaken the mind, the NLP and hypnosis guide. Yeah,